I really didn't want to bring this stuff up on my channel. I really didn't. But it's been a year, and I can't stay silent anymore. As of recording this today, it is 5:54 Eastern Standard Time, October 7th, 2024. Exactly one year has passed since the massacre of the Israeli people at the hands of Hamas. And to this day, I still can't get over the tragedy of that day. I cannot remember a time when I was more scared for people on the other side of the planet from where I was at the moment than I was that day. For context, I am Israeli. You could probably notice if you could see this little necklace. I am from Israel, and my entire extended family still lives over in Israel. That's like several cousins, uncles, aunts. All three of my living grandparents live there still. Every day since the start of this conflict, I have been worried for their safety. And what do I hear from everyone else online? That Palestine is the one being harmed in this conflict. Which, yes, they are getting attacked, but just saying that without the context is just wrong. Yes, the Palestinians are being attacked, but, or at least they were. I'm pretty sure the war is there's still some there's still some soldiers in Gaza trying to get the hostages back. I'm not entirely sure if there's any real combat going on because Israel has done quite the number on Hamas in the last year. They're like a fraction of. They're like a shell of what they once were, and deservedly so. But they still have over 101, I believe is the number, hostages within Gaza. And every day we pray for the safety and for the safety of those hostages. God knows what they're doing to them over there. Some of the stories that I've heard from hostages that have been rescued, horrifying. One of the hostages, I forget the name of him. One of the hostages was 10 months old when he was brought into Gaza. And he was kidnapped. He was about 10 months old when he was taken into Gaza by Hamas. That child celebrated his first birthday in captivity, in a tunnel underground, away from the entire rest of his, away from the rest of his family, unless they were probably taken too. Let's be real, they probably were, but that's my point. And people say that Israel is the one committing ethnic cleansing and genocide. I don't buy it. I don't buy it one bit. If Israel were to commit genocide on Gaza, it would be pathetically easy. Gaza is a really small strip of land. Let me pull up a picture to show you. Let's see, Gaza Strip. Yeah, the Gaza Strip is about 40 kilometers long. Like, along the long end, the Gaza Strip... Okay, that's not going to show up well. The Gaza Strip is 40 kilometers long along its, like, longer end. It's about 20 kilometers long at the widest... It's 20 kilometers wide at its widest point near the bottom. That is a really small area. Like, let's do some quick math here. 40 kilometers to miles. That is about 25 miles long. It's a very, very small area. And if Israel really wanted to wipe out the population, they could just carpet bomb the whole place. They certainly have the means to. But they don't. If Israel really wanted to wipe out the Arabs in Gaza, you would not have heard... There would not be Gaza. But they don't. We don't. Because unlike these Arabs, we've actually been wanting peace for decades now. Like, the majority of Israelis are willing to end the war if all the hostages are returned. But that's the important part. If the hostages are returned. As long as they're not... Like, as long as Hamas still has these hostages, then no can do. It's just... Again, it's been a year. Give us our fucking families back. Please. Yeah, and like, some of the other shit I've been hearing from these pro-Palestinians is just, like, mind-boggling. Like, colonizers? Really? Because I don't remember seeing any Arab structures nearly as old as the Jewish structures in Jerusalem. That's because Islam didn't exist nearly as long as Judaism. Judaism, like, the Jewish people have had, like, we've dug up, like, artifacts and evidence in Jerusalem, like, Jewish artifacts that date back 3,000 years. That is older than the religion of Islam itself. That's older than Christianity. The Romans. That's older than the Romans. Like, older than the Romans, older than the Greeks, older than the... Like, the first empire to take over that land from the Jews is the Assyrian Empire, which way older than anything Islam. If anything, Israel is the greatest effort of the most successful effort in decolonization in human history, because it's finally bringing the Jewish people back from all around the world, not just from Europe. There was plenty of Jews in North Africa and, like, other sections of the world. All of them coming back to this one little strip of land that they want to call theirs. That's ultimately the whole doctrine of Judaism. The Jewish people want to live in this one specific area. Like, we don't want to take over the world. That's too much of a hassle, first of all. And secondly, we wouldn't... Like, what would we gain from that? Sure, like, we don't want to control the world. It's baffling to me that people have these sorts of misconceptions about the Jewish people. And I know I'm kind of rambling, but I I don't feel like I could type out what I have to say and not kind of get swept away in writing, because that I originally had like a full script for this video, where I like talked about like specific YouTubers and their terrible takes on the conflict. But I'm still gonna do that. But I don't feel like the script I got too carried away. I feel like with writing the script, but I don't. But I don't think I can get. But I don't think I can stay. God damn. Look, I can already predict what the comment section of this video is going to be like. I'm going to leave the comment section open because A, I don't know how to turn the comments off, and B, even if I did, I don't want to. But I feel, but if you like, something that's always bugged me when it comes to these pro-Palestinians is whenever they make their tweet, their terrible takes, or whatever it is they want to say, they don't bother to cite their sources. Well, for the most part, there are some people. Like Jacksepticeye, for example, he made a tweet about it, where he called for an end to the quote the slaughter of Palestinian children, which yeah, I can understand that, but I can understand wanting people not to die, but the problem is that the responsibility that isn't on Israel. The responsibility of Israel is to its people, same as any other country. The responsibility of Americans dying is the responsibility of the American government. The freaking Spanish people dying is the responsibility of the Spanish government, so on and so forth. The same applies with the Palestinians. People dying in Gaza are the responsibility of Hamas. And they have misgoverned their people for 18 years now. Pretty much since they came into power, since they were elected into office in 2006. Which, by the way, right before that, everyone says that, the Israeli people, Israel was occupying the Gaza Strip. Israel was occupying Palestine, oppressing the people. First of all, they were never oppressing the people. But even if they were, in 2005, Israel actually pulled out of Gaza. They took their people, every last Israeli civilian was removed from the Gaza Strip, whether willingly or by force, and the strip was left to the Palestinians. And we left them all the infrastructure we built there, all the farms, the livestock, everything that we had built there, we left for them. And you know what they did with that stuff? They burnt it. They burnt all of it down within the first year. And then they had their election where they elected Hamas. And Hamas, shortly after that election, wiped out all of their competitors, killed their fellow Palestinians to ensure that there would never be another election again. And there wasn't. There hasn't been an election in the Gaza Strip since 2006. And what did they build when they didn't have when they burned down after they burned down our farms? You know what they did with that space? They made rockets. They made suicide bombs. They made all sorts of weapons, all for the purpose of destroying Israel. Because that's ultimately what Gaza wants. That's ultimately what Hamas wants. Not all Palestinians believe in this cause. It seems that some I've done some research into this. Some of the Palestinians have kind of turned against Hamas. They're not supporting it anymore. But that doesn't change the fact that that as long as Hamas is controlling the country, then Hamas. God damn it! I need to mute notifications on Discord. They built weapons to attack Israel because that's ultimately what Hamas wants. They've said it on news broadcasts. They've said they want to do October 7th again, and this is what they said. They have to teach Israel a lesson, and they're going to do it again and again as long as they can. Imagine that from the perspective of, say, America. This, October 7th, what Hamas did to the Jewish people would be like if instead of 4 planes hijacked by Al-Qaeda, it was 4,000 planes. And 3,000 of them hit locations all along the eastern seaboard, not just in a few select locations in the northeast. And the remaining 1,000 turned around and flew back to Afghanistan, where the passengers then became hostages of Al-Qaeda. That would be the equivalent of what Hamas did to Israel on October 7th. And if you can support things like that, if you can support, if you can hear this, horrific truth and still support Palestine, then I'm sorry, you're either still horribly misinformed or you're anti-Semitic. And I've heard people say that, you can't criticize the Israeli government because then you get called anti-Semitic. No, yes, you can criticize the Israeli government. There's a difference between criticizing the Israeli government and calling for free Palestine. First, let's talk about criticizing the Israeli government. I'm going to criticize the Israeli government right now. I think our government is a mess right now. And freaking Bibi won't go home. Dude, it's 10 years past your bedtime. Where are your kids? It's very concerning. Go to bed. Our government is a mess right now. We've had stalemates for multiple elections now, where they couldn't come to a vote. They couldn't come to a consensus because of Bibi and his freaking administration. It's a mess. But there's a difference between saying that and calling for and chanting things like "from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free." Because you might have heard if you if you come up to a pro-Palestine supporter on the street who's chanting from the river to the sea, you ask them what river to what sea, they won't be able to answer you because they don't know. They're talking about the Jordan River to the Mediterranean Sea. And you know what's in between the Jordan River and the Mediterranean Sea? All of Israel. So it's calling for the removal of the land of Israel entirely and replacing it with a Palestinian state. Which, by the way, Palestine, like, they didn't even call themselves that at first. It's not until the 60s, like 1964, was when the Palestinian flag was created. Like, they didn't call themselves that until the 60s. They're just Arabs. Like, the Gaza Strip belongs to Egypt. The West Bank belongs to Jordan. Which, by the way, Jordan also didn't exist before, during the British Mandate. The area wasn't just that little strip of Israel. It's also this whole other chunk to the left of Israel, which is now modern-day Jordan. So, it's basic history that, like, Douglas Murray said this in an interview once. You can lie all you want, but don't expect not to be challenged about it. Or something like that. And he's right. Like, if you're gonna say things like that about history, you better come with receipts. I can tell you, like, these pro-Palestinians, they don't have receipts. Like, they're just regurgitating shit they heard on, like, TikTok or freaking Al Jazeera. Like, and the worst part to me is that it's college kids that are doing this the most. Like, all the protests happening on college campuses, it's just embarrassing. I'm very lucky that I haven't seen any protests on my campus, but it's very sad to see college is supposed to teach us it's supposed to teach us critical thinking and, like, challenging the facts. This is not what they meant. They did not mean challenge the facts by just spewing misinformation and, like, calling for the destruction of an entire country full of, like, 10 million or more people. Like, it's really upsetting, the situation of the world right now. Especially coming from the country that's being blamed for self-defense. And all because of, like, tens of thousands of Palestinians are dying? Sure, that's a lot of people. But you know where a lot of more Muslims are being hurt and probably killed? China. I don't know how many of y'all have heard about the Uyghur Muslims who have been taken to concentration camps by the Chinese government. And they're being treated like the Jews were in the Holocaust. Like, at least. It's terrible. Like, there are some... And, like, freaking... There was an epidemic of, like, deportations of Afghani Muslims from Pakistan. I don't know if that's still going on, but that was definitely happening, or at least earlier in this conflict. Like 4 months in, February, like January 2024, this was definitely still happening. Freaking, like, there are so many actual atrocities going on in the world, and yet not a single word about them. Meanwhile, Israel blows up a few cities in an attempt to dig out terrorists, which is the same thing that the U.S. did in the War on Terror, by the way. And suddenly, it's a global outrage. Y'all are either stupid or hypocritical. I do not understand this. I'm kind of... I'm at a loss for words sometimes with some of these people. Like it's a real problem. The the amount of misinformation that has been spread about this conflict. And I know I keep saying that, but ultimately that's how I view these people. They're just misinformed. Like, they don't, like, for the most part, I don't think these people are necessarily bad people. They just don't have the full picture. They just don't see the full picture. They see the numbers, and that's the reality for them. That's just sad, honestly. That's just sad more than anything. Like, and another thing that's been really baffling to hear from the anti-Israel campaign is that they call Israel an apartheid state. First of all, I hate this trend of taking specific events in history and using their names to describe other events that aren't even similar. Like, the apartheid happened in South Africa, sorry. The apartheid happened in South Africa. It was a forceful segregation of black people from the rest of South Africa. And it was terrible. Nelson Mandela fought against it and ultimately was ended. That's not at all what is going on in Israel. If it was this apartheid, then how is it that there are 20 million plus, like, I think like 20,800,000 Palestinian Arabs living in the state of Israel? If it really was an apartheid state, wouldn't Israel just push all these Arabs out to the territories of Gaza? Like, if it really was an apartheid state, would Israel have given Palestinians work permits to come and work in Israel to make a decent living so that they can feed their families? No. Because that's not what an apartheid is. An apartheid is the complete separation of of a certain ethnicity from the rest of the population. And that's not at all what is happening in Israel. Granted, they did have to close the checkpoints after October 7th, but after October, like, that's like saying that the TSA shouldn't have cranked up their airport security after 9/11. Like, it's just a matter of precaution because we don't want our women raped again. I'm like, the worst part for me is when people say that you can be Jewish and still recognize that it's a genocide happening there, which is, those people are they're just people. It's like, at the end of the day, they're just people that are misinformed. Like, freaking, I don't know if as many people know her as they do Jacksepticeye, but Alicia XDeath, she's a Twitch streamer that like does reaction content for the most part. She does some gaming here and there, but she mostly does reaction content, and she posts VODs from her streams on her YouTube channel, Alicia XDeath. It's Alicia X Life on Twitter. It's a whole thing. She's honestly, I love her content. She's great, but when she reacted to a video in the early stages of the downfall of Mr. Beast, and her chat informed her that one of the people that the video was talking about at the moment is pro-Israel, and she said, I still have this like burned in my. She said, "Just admit you have a hard-on for genocide, you piece of shit." And then she said that you can be Jewish and still recognize that there's a genocide going on. And it's just sad. It's just sad to see how horribly misinformed some people can be about this. Like, one thing that I always ask pro-Palestinians, anti-Israelis, whatever you want to call them, so one thing I always ask them is, what's your source? And if at any point, try this for yourself. If you ever run into a pro-Palestinian, ask them, what's your source? And if at any point in their answer you hear the word TikTok, you've already won the argument. Because TikTok is not a reliable news source. It's a goddamn social media platform. Would you cite Twitter as an accurate source? No. Because unless you're talking about like video game news that were revealed on Twitter. But for like global news? No. Twitter is, again, it's a social media. And so is Instagram, so is freaking Snapchat, so is YouTube. Not as much YouTube. It's a video, well, they call it a video sharing platform. It's a very specific subcategory of social media, but I still count it as social media. But yeah, so is TikTok. I'm just tired of all the misinformation being spread. I've said this like how many times in this video? Like 7 or 8 times, because that's the main issue I have. Just, if you're gonna make statements like about a conflict in a country that you've likely never been to, do your research at least. Try to understand what is happening, why it's happening, and like try and think for yourself. Like, you don't need me to tell you what to think. I'm putting my thoughts out there because I want to, not because I feel like I have to, but because I want to. I feel like I want to talk about this. And I've done a lot of research into this topic. And again, I have family that lives in Israel. Like, I am originally from Israel. But if you're gonna talk about any kind of like real world current events, you should at least do your research before you say something that's just incorrect and hurtful. And yes, anti-Semitic, because you can choose to not support Zionism. There's a difference between not being Zionist and being anti-Zionist. And if you're anti-Zionist, that means you are calling for the dissolution of the state of Israel. And that is, in fact, an anti-Semitic statement. Like, I'm interested to see like which tragedy like the Jews are going to be known for more. This conflict with Palestine, this conflict with the Palestinians, or the Holocaust. Honestly, I feel like they're both. I feel like the Holocaust was, in my opinion, like not just in my opinion, just in general, like one of the most horrific genocides in human history. And the Israel-Palestine war is just that, it's a war. And civilian casualties happen in war. And in fact, Israel has a really good ratio of civilian casualties to combatant casualties. It's nearly 2-1. That's way better than the global average, which is 9-1. It's just be smart about what you debate online. And if you're gonna make statements to like large communities of people, do your research. Like, try to understand what's going on. Try to learn what it is you're fighting for before you fight for it. And before I wrap this up, can I just say the whole Queers for Palestine movement is also just baffling to me. Like, do you know what they would do to you if they found out you were gay in their country? The same thing any other Arab country would do to you. They would throw you in jail at best and throw you off a building at worst. The only country in the Middle East where that wouldn't happen to you is Israel. Like, in Israel, they have pride parades in Tel Aviv. The only parade you'll get in Gaza is the parade to the elevator before they throw you off the fucking roof. Oh yeah, I feel like I've talked about this for as long as, like, I feel like I've said everything that I've wanted to say on the matter. And if I've most likely repeated myself a bunch in this video. I'm just getting my thoughts on the table. I'm really interested to see how everyone responds to this video, if there's going to be much of a response at all, because it's a pretty small channel, all things considered. But if you're thinking this is going to be what my channel is now, it is not. I don't want to keep making videos about this. It's just too depressing. I have plenty of other like normal content on my channel, like planned for my channel. It might take a while for it to come out, but hey, that's just how this channel has been. I upload stuff whenever it's done, and I feel like it's in good condition to share it. Like, there's an entire other episode of The Writer's Room that I just cut because it didn't come out right. But I do have other content planned. If anything, if I'm gonna do anything else related to this video, it's gonna be a follow up discussing any sort of like aftermath, like what the comments say and things like that. But yeah, that's gonna. I think I'm gonna wrap it up now. I've been Yuval Green from Sasquatch Productions. Uh, Thank you so much for watching my video, and I hope you stick around for what I've got in the future. Have a nice day.